Content note: this episode involves a real death, mental health struggles, and disturbing circumstances around a young woman's disappearance. Please listen with care and be respectful if you choose to comment. You check into a cheap downtown hotel because it fits your budget and your plans. The lobby is noisy. The neon outside buzzes. Sirens echo up the street. It's Los Angeles, loud, bright, and a little frayed around the edges. You drag your suitcase across a tired lobby floor. You ride an elevator with a sticky button. You slide your keycard into a door that doesn't always read on the first try. On the website, the place looked basic but harmless. A faded piece of old Hollywood right on the edge of downtown. You don't know that above you, on the roof, there are 4 black water tanks the size of small cars, silent, sealed, and out of sight. You don't know that in a few weeks, the whole world is going to watch your last minutes in that same elevator, frame by frame, looking for clues you'll never get the chance to explain. And you don't know that long after you're gone, strangers will still be arguing about you in comment sections, trying to solve a mystery your own family wishes never existed. Her name was Elisa Lam. She was 21 years old. And for 19 days in 2013, nobody knew where she was, until a maintenance worker opened the hatch of a rooftop water tank and saw her floating inside. You're listening to Fear Files, Real Cases. Dark Details. Tonight, we're going to the Cecil Hotel in downtown Los Angeles to walk through the last known days of Elisa Lam, and the case that turned her into one of the most debated mysteries on the internet. But behind the elevator video, the ghost stories, and the conspiracy theories, there's something more uncomfortable, and more human. This is what can happen when a real person with a real mental illness slips through the cracks, far from home, in a building with a dark reputation and too many unlocked doors. Before she was a headline, Elisa Lam was a student with a backpack and a blog. She was born in 1991 in Vancouver, Canada, the daughter of immigrants from Hong Kong. In photos, she's the kind of person you'd pass in a campus hallway without thinking twice: dark hair, big glasses, bundled in a coat and scarf against the cold. Elisa was studying at the University of British Columbia, but school wasn't easy. She wrote openly online about depression and being diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Some days, she felt hopeful and ambitious. Other days, she felt like the world was closing in. She used her Tumblr and blogged the way a lot of people do at that age, as a mix of diary, mood board, and lifeline. Books. Fashion. Quotes. Posts about trying to manage her mental health and feeling like she was falling behind everyone else. By early 2013, she needed a break. She convinced her parents to let her travel alone down the west coast of the United States, San Diego, Los Angeles, maybe San Francisco after that. She promised to stay in touch every day, to call or email so they'd know she was okay. For cautious parents, that daily check-in was the condition. She kept that promise, until the day she checked into the Cecil Hotel. If Los Angeles has a list of haunted buildings, the Cecil is near the top. Built in the 1920s as a chic business hotel, it slid into decline as the neighborhood around it changed. Skid Row pushed in close. Drugs, poverty, and crime grew up around the lobby doors. Over the decades, the Cecil collected a reputation like dust: suicides, overdoses, rumored murders, and at least 2 confirmed serial killers who used it as a base for a while. By 2013, part of the building had been rebranded as the Stay on Main, a budget hotel hostel hybrid marketed to younger travelers. Same building. Same elevators. Same water tanks on the roof. Elisa arrived in Los Angeles in late January and checked into that rebranded side of the Cecil. At first, she was in a shared room, hostel style, with other young women. But within a couple of days, the other guests complained that her behavior was odd and unsettling. She reportedly left notes telling them to go away, locked them out, and acted strangely enough that management moved her to a room of her own. On her blog, around that time, she wrote about feeling directionless and anxious. To strangers, it just looked like standard 20-something angst. To her family, it was part of a pattern, periods of relative stability mixed with episodes where her mental health wobbled. Still, she was exploring the city. She went to the San Diego Zoo earlier in the trip and posted photos. In Los Angeles, she visited bookstores, wandered downtown, and even attended a live taping of the TV show Conan. She called home regularly. She bought books for her family, worrying out loud if they'd be too heavy in her suitcase for the rest of the trip. She was doing what so many people do in their early 20s, trying on a slightly braver version of herself in a new city. Then, on January 31, 2013, something changed. That day, Elisa was supposed to check out of the Cecil and catch a bus to Santa Cruz. Her parents waited for the usual call or email. Nothing came. They tried again. No answer. By evening, they were worried. By the next day, they were frightened enough to contact the Los Angeles Police Department and report her missing. Then they got on a plane from Vancouver to Los Angeles to help search. Police interviewed hotel staff. They talked to other guests. They learned that Elisa had been seen in the days leading up to her disappearance, sometimes behaving normally, sometimes seeming confused or distressed. One bookstore employee remembered her as lively and friendly, buying gifts for her family. A hotel manager remembered complaints about her behavior in the shared room. The LAPD searched as much of the hotel as they could without a warrant. They checked her room. They brought in dogs that sniffed through the building and even up to the roof, but didn't pick up a strong trail. They did not open the water tanks. There was no clear sign of foul play, no blood, no broken doors, no screaming heard in the night. For a while, the case was just another missing person report in a big city that sees too many. Then the elevator video went online. On February 13, nearly 2 weeks after Elisa vanished, the LAPD released a surveillance clip from one of the Cecil's elevators. They hoped that someone might recognize her. Instead, the footage went viral. The video is about 2.5 minutes long. The image is grainy, time-stamped. The sound is muted. The hallway outside looks empty. Elisa steps into the elevator in a red hoodie, shorts, and sandals. Her hair is loose around her shoulders. She leans forward, presses several buttons on the panel, and waits. The doors don't close. She steps back into the corner and presses herself against the wall, shoulders hunched, like she's hiding from someone in the hallway. Then she darts forward and peeks out into the corridor, looking left and right with quick, jerky movements. No one else appears on camera. She jumps back in, presses more buttons, moves to different corners of the elevator like the floor might be lava. At one point she steps in and out of the doorway over and over, like she's testing whether the doors will close on her. Her hands twist and flutter in front of her, fingers splayed, as if she's talking to someone just outside the frame, or arguing with someone only she can see. Then she walks out of the elevator altogether and moves off to the left, beyond the security camera's view. The doors close behind her. In the video, she never comes back. The internet did. People slowed the clip down, zoomed in, color corrected the footage, and watched it on loop, trying to decode what she was seeing, who she might be hiding from, and what happened in the seconds after she vanished from the frame. Some insisted there had to be someone edited out of the hallway. Others were sure she was under the influence of drugs. Many jumped straight to the unnatural: ghosts, demons, cursed elevators, haunted hotels. Almost no one, at least in those early comment sections, talked about untreated bipolar disorder or psychosis. It was easier to believe in ghosts. While the video was making its way around the world, guests inside the Cecil Hotel were dealing with something else. The water. Showers were weak. The taps sputtered. Some people complained that the water from the sink and shower was dark, with a strange smell and taste. On February 19, a maintenance worker named Santiago Lopez went up to the roof to check the 4 large water tanks that served the building. To reach them, he had to climb a stairway, unlock a door, and go up a ladder. One of the tank lids was open. He looked inside. Floating face up in the water, naked, was the body of a young woman. Her clothes, similar to what Elisa wore in the elevator video, were drifting nearby in the tank, along with a room key and a watch. The missing person had been found. The mystery was just getting started. The fire department drained the tank and cut it open to remove her body. The hotel shut off the water while officials tested it and told guests what had happened. News crews showed up. So did anger, lawsuits, and horror that anyone had been showering, brushing their teeth, or drinking from those taps. An autopsy was performed. On paper, the findings were straightforward and, in some ways, unsatisfying. There were no signs of physical trauma. No broken bones. No stab wounds. No defensive injuries. No evidence of sexual assault. Toxicology tests showed prescription medications consistent with her bipolar treatment, but in levels suggesting she had either reduced or recently stopped taking some of them. There were no significant amounts of illicit drugs in her system. The official cause of death: accidental drowning. A significant condition: bipolar disorder. For the coroner, that was the story. For the public, it wasn't nearly enough. There are 2 questions that still send people down rabbit holes about this case. First, How did she get onto the roof and into the tank? Second, what was happening in her mind in those last days? The roof of the Cecil wasn't meant to be easily accessible to guests. Doors were supposed to be locked and alarmed. Staff had keys and codes. But the building also had exterior fire escapes, and later footage from documentaries and independent investigators showed that an adventurous person could reach the roof by climbing those. The tanks themselves were large, cylindrical, elevated on concrete blocks. There were no fixed ladders attached. Workers used portable ladders to check the hatches. A determined, physically able person could climb up, lift a lid, and slip inside, but it would be difficult, risky, and cold. Once you were in the water, getting out would be even harder. The walls were smooth. There were no steps. If the lid had fallen partly closed, it would have blocked light and sound. Police dogs had not picked up her scent on the roof during the initial search, but by the time the case was truly underway, days had passed. Scent trails fade. Rooftops scrub away evidence with wind and sun. So while the idea of someone dragging her up there, lifting her into the tank, and covering their tracks is frightening, there's no physical evidence to back that up. No security camera caught anyone else leading her to the roof. No witnesses heard a struggle. No obvious injuries pointed to a fight. That doesn't prove that foul play was impossible, but it leaves investigators with another, more subtle possibility. To understand it, you have to zoom out from the elevator video and look at Elisa's life, the way the coroner and her family did. She had bipolar disorder, a mood condition that can cause extreme swings between deep depression and elevated, sometimes manic states. She wrote about it often and honestly. She also had a history of not always taking her medication exactly as prescribed, a very human and common thing that can, unfortunately, have serious consequences. According to the toxicology report, some of her medications were present but not at full therapeutic levels. That suggests she may have underdosed or missed doses in the days before her death. Now fold in the rest. Traveling alone. Staying in a high-stress environment, noisy downtown streets, a hotel with a rough reputation and strange energy. Sharing a room with strangers before being moved because of odd behavior. Pressure to keep checking in with her parents, to prove she was handling it. All the normal anxieties of being 21 and trying to figure your life out. For someone with bipolar disorder, that mix, sleep disruption, stress, possibly missed meds, can be the perfect storm. The coroner's conclusion and many mental health professionals' best guess is that Elisa may have been experiencing a psychotic episode, a state where your thoughts and perceptions detach from reality. You can see threats where none exist. You can have intense beliefs that feel absolutely true to you but make no sense to anyone else. Look back at the elevator video with that in mind. Pressing all the buttons. Hearing out like something invisible is in the hallway. Making odd hand motions as if talking to someone only she can see. Stepping in and out, unable to decide where safety is. From the inside of a psychotic episode, that behavior might not feel strange at all. It might feel like the only logical way to survive whatever your brain has convinced you is happening. If she carried that same fear and confusion onto the roof, it's possible she saw the water tank not as a hazard, but as a hiding place. A place to get away from something only she could sense. If she climbed in and the cold water shocked her, if the lid shifted, if the tank was already partly full, she could have panicked and lost her grip. Once inside, the smooth walls and heavy hatch made it nearly impossible to escape. No demons. No killers on the stairs. Just a dangerous environment, an unprotected rooftop, a severe mental health crisis, and a series of small failures, of architecture, of safety, of understanding, that added up to a tragedy. People don't like that explanation. It's not cinematic. It doesn't make use of the hotel's sinister history or all the strange coincidences people have pointed out, similarities to horror movies, eerie book titles, or internet games involving elevators. It also forces us to admit something a lot of viewers would rather avoid, that what happened to Elisa Lam could, in a different form, happen to someone we know. A classmate. A sibling. A friend who's trying a new medication and doesn't tell anyone they're slipping. It's easier to believe in curses than in untreated bipolar disorder. It's easier to believe in ghosts than in a young woman drowning alone because she climbed into a place no one thought to secure. And it's easier to see a mystery than to sit with the idea that someone who wrote about feeling haunted by the idea of wasting your life was trying very hard not to. Her parents never wanted a horror story. They wanted their daughter to go on a trip and come home. After Elisa's body was found, her family filed a wrongful death suit against the hotel, arguing that it failed to protect guests from hazards like unsecured access to the roof and water tanks. The hotel's lawyers responded that there was no way to reasonably foresee a guest climbing into a tank on their own, and that no evidence showed staff negligence directly caused her death. The lawsuit was eventually dismissed. The Cecil rebranded again, shuttered, reopened in different forms, and leaned into its grim notoriety. Documentaries, YouTube videos, and podcasts poured over the case. Some treated Elisa like a puzzle. Others tried to put the focus back on her as a person. Her online presence kept flickering even after her death, not because of anything supernatural, but because of cute posts and the way the internet never really lets anything go. Years later, strangers still leave messages on her old blog, talking to her as if she might somehow read them. Meanwhile, her family has to live with the fact that the worst thing that ever happened to them became entertainment for millions. So what do we actually know? We know that Elisa Lam was a real person, not a character. We know she lived with bipolar disorder and was open about it. We know she traveled to Los Angeles alone, stayed at the Cecil/Stay on Main, and behaved strangely enough to be moved to her own room. We know she vanished on January 31, 2013. We know the last confirmed footage of her shows her acting erratically in an elevator. We know she ended up in a rooftop water tank that should have been harder to access than it was. We know the coroner found no evidence of physical assault and ruled her death an accidental drowning, with her mental health listed as a significant contributing factor. Everything beyond that, every whisper about demons, conspiracies, or supernatural forces, is just that, whispers. Not facts. Not justice. If this story leaves you unsettled, it should. Not because of the elevator video, or the tank, or the hotel's haunted house reputation. It should unsettle you because of how thin the line can be between adventure and danger when you're young, far from home, and living with a mental illness that other people can't see. It should unsettle you because safety features that look fine on paper can fail in real life, locked doors propped open, alarms disconnected, roof hatches left just accessible enough for someone in crisis to reach. And it should unsettle you because of how quickly a person can turn from our daughter to that girl in the video, lost inside a story they never got to finish. If you have any credible information about a missing person or an unsolved death, contact law enforcement or your local tip line. Do not investigate on your own. Do not trespass, harass families, or try to hunt ghosts in places where real people live and work. And if you or someone you love is struggling with their mental health, especially if you live with bipolar disorder or another condition that can affect your perception, please don't try to fight it alone. Reach out to a trusted person, a doctor, a counselor, or a local mental health service. If there is immediate danger, call your local emergency number right away. Elisa Lam deserved better than a viral clip and a rooftop tank. She deserved a city that was safer for people like her. She deserved a world that took her illness as seriously as her travel plans. She deserved to finish her trip and call her parents from the bus to Santa Cruz, complaining about heavy suitcases and long rides. Instead, we have this. A hotel with a reputation. A tank on a roof. A video in an elevator. And a family still living with a hole no theory will ever fill. You've been listening to Fear Files, Real Cases. Dark Details. Lock your doors. Check on your people. And remember, the scariest stories are the ones that begin with someone just trying to have a normal day. We will be back with another case soon.